Hey, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about contingent offers in Louisville, Kentucky. Hey, I'm Matt Gatewood, Principal Broker of Gatewood Properties in Kentucky. And today we're going to talk about contingent offers, or you may have heard the term subject to, in some other markets use that term. And we're going to talk about the rules specific to what we see here in Louisville, Kentucky. So the first thing I want to do is start out with a bit of a definition of contingency. So there can be a little bit of confusion around it because a contingency can be anything that's within a contract that has to be fulfilled before completing the agreement. So an inspection, an appraisal, a financing contingency, you'll hear those terms. And that applies to any sort of offer if you input that contingency in it. Once those are fulfilled, inspection, appraisal, finance contingency, then you would move to close the fulfillment of the contract. So what we're talking about today, though, is contingency of sale and closing. And I'm going to break it down a little bit on the board, do things a little bit differently to make it a little bit more visual, because we're going to go through a lot of information here. And it's kind of a complex thing that we really haven't seen a whole lot of over the last couple of years, 2020 to 2022. However, I'm starting to see them again. In addition, it's a lot of times what we've seen a lot of real estate have is contingency of sale and closing. And what we're talking about with this is you have a property currently that you want to sell in order to buy another property, whether it be new or a resale property for that. So we're going to draw this out a little bit because I think the visual guide's going to help. And we're going to talk through the regulations around it or the parts to it. So let's say you have, and excuse my drawing, you have your current house, okay? So this is your current one, looking good here. You want to go purchase this house over here, but you already have a lot of equity in here that you want to apply to your payment over here. But also a lot of times what contingencies of sale and closing deal with is you can't hold a mortgage on both properties. So it's a debt to equity, debt to income, debt to equity, all that sort of ratios that loan officers look at if you're using a loan situation. Or you may be in a cash situation where you're like, I don't have liquidable cash for this. I don't have an equity line on it. I don't have line of credit or whatever. I need the money out of this house in order to purchase this one. It's required financially for me to do so. So what we do is we write an offer on this house here, and it has an additional form to it. So we have the regular offer form that we write, but then we have an additional form that's called the contingency of sale and closing. And what I want you to think about with contingency of sale and closing is there's two pieces to it. I mean, think about it as contingency of sale and contingency of closing. Okay, contingency of closing would be this house is already under contract. Contingency of sale means I'm not under contract yet on this one. So let's break that down a little bit. What does that mean? So I want to buy this house here. My house is not on the market yet. I write this one, we write the offer to it, we write the contingency of sale and closing form. And what that form is going to say is a couple different things. It's going to say how long it's going to take for me to put my house on the market. Maybe it's 7 days, maybe it's 10 days, maybe it's 14 days. All of these numbers that I'm talking about today will be strategically different in every circumstance. So we're just going to use some general numbers here with it. But let's just say I've got 10 days to put my house on market. In addition to that, I'm going to put a couple of things in there that says how long it's going to take for, I'm going to guess, how long it's going to take for me to get under contract here on my current house. And then we're going to have something called the first right of refusal form, or first right of refusal time frame, which we'll get into a little bit more detail here in just a second. And then it's also going to do with the time frames. How am I going to do my inspections first on this property? When are my time frames for appraisal and closing going to kick in? And that's all on that form. And then there's a drop dead date to say, no matter how long this goes, past closing, whatever it is, what's sort of my drop dead date on contingencies and what those look like. All right, so write an offer here, contingency of sale and closing form. I'm going to say how long I'm going to go on the market, all that kind of stuff. Let's say it gets accepted. The seller comes back of this property here and says, I accept your contingency sale and closing offer. Okay, great. This in our MLS is still marked as active in the MLS, meaning it's still wide open for showings, anything like that. We have an agent note section that will say particular notes that only agents can see, so the public's not going to see it. And in that, it's going to say accepted, contingent offer, and then it's going to say that first right of refusal time frame. And let's say it's 48 hours, okay? So the 48-hour first right of refusal says, this is active on market, and I have 48 hours to either do one of two things. Either this house has to be under contract without another contingency sale and closing. We'll go into more details on that. It has to be under contract within that 48-hour time period, or it is, I found a way that I can hold both mortgages for a while. And when I'm talking about this first right of refusal, though, is if another offer comes in. So I'm active, 48-hour first right of refusal, I'm held here, right? I'm in line. Somebody else comes in and makes an offer. Now that offer can be a non-contingent offer, or it can actually still be another contingency offer. So whatever's coming in here, they notify that new buyer, hey, I've got a contingent offer, accept it. There's somebody in line. They got 48 hours. So it's kind of in this holding pattern, getting into more details, but you got 48 hours to either get under contract here or not. Now, where it comes an interesting play here is, are you on market yet? Right? So are you even on market when you get bumped, we call it, or attempted to be bumped? Is it, or I'm already on market, can I get under contract in that 40-hour time period? So that's what we're trying to do. So there's a lot of strategic elements and a lot of moving pieces with contingency sale and closing. So let's say that you're not getting bumped, anything's happening with that. And you're going through inspections on this property here, you went ahead and did that early. And then on the contingency sale and closing, you are gone ahead and gone on market. You got 10 days to get on market, you get on market in 7. You're rock and rolling, you got it all finished, you got your house ready, you're ready to go. Once this house gets another offer on it, an accepted contract, we can release this contingency of sale and only be on the contingency of closing of this house, okay? Go a little more detail on that. This offer that comes in cannot be another contingency of sale and closing offer. You cannot stack contingency of sale and closing. However, you can stack contingency of closing. You can stack contingency of closing as long as the day is long. I'll give you an example. I had a closing one time that was 5 deep. So we had closing, right? And so we were actually, I think, second to last on it. So we kind of were a little bit later in the day, and they all just lined up. And that's what happens. This one closes, and then this one closes, this one closes. So it's a long train of things, of transactions that are happening. So like I said, you can stack contingent closing. You cannot stack contingent sale and closing. If you were to try to accept this, and this is kind of the strategy we would deal with in each situation, you cannot release your contingent sale here, which means you can still get bumped, right? That's getting into some details and things like that we're not going to go too deep into here. We're just going to get some general things about it. And as a note about that, the whole purpose of me being here and helping is to assist you with the complexity of contingent sale and closing, because there's so many moving pieces to it and so many different strategic elements. Like I was talking about first right of refusal, the time frame for it, when you can get on market. It's a balancing act between all of these sort of variables that are occurring. So that's the bottom line to what's actually happening here. So I'm going to review real quick. You want to make an offer on this house? You need to do a contingency sale and closing. A lot of times you work with a loan officer who work these details, whether you can hold both mortgages, or a lot of times you just want to do it from the aspect of it. You write a contingency sale and closing offer, has the form to it. You put your house on market. You release a contingency sale because you got an offer here. And then all we do is we're just going to stack contingency of closings. And what that means for closing is you have back-to-back. If we're the same closing attorney, they're probably going to be right next, not even an hour apart. They're going to be back to back, and we'll line up the closing and coordinate all that. If there are different closing attorneys, we might put a 30-minute or hour in between, so it gives you time to go between the two. You would take your funds from this house and then apply it to the next. There are other details that I can talk through, like if you don't do a contingent sale and closing, which is a lot of things that we've been able to, if the loan officer says, hey, you can actually hold 2 mortgages and things like that. There's some ways to kind of work through those situations, but the main thing I want to talk about today as contingency of sale and closing. So complex thing, like I said, I'm here to help with it. If you get additional questions to it, please give me a call, shoot me an email, text. We'd love to talk to you about some of those details. It's a important part of the process. Like I said, we haven't seen much, but it's very helpful. So if you like the video, like it, subscribe, check out some other videos. I talk about more than just contingency sale and closing, give you a migraine type of situations. I talk about living in Louisville, Kentucky, and other important real estate things. So thanks again for tuning in. I hope this was helpful to give you at least some general idea of what happens with contingency sale and closing. But I'm happy to talk further and guide you through the process. Talk to you soon. Thank you.